In the headlines, 2 monarchs, 5 others arrested over Edo train station attack. Tenure of Inspector General of Police Alkali Baba extended. Court adjourns $53 million judgment debt suit against CBN governor to March 20th. And on the foreign scene, UN peacekeepers discovered dozens of bodies in mass graves in DR Congo. Hello and welcome to Trust TV News Update. I am Ibrahim Yusuf. Hello and welcome once again. The Edo State government has said that 2 traditional rulers and 5 others have been arrested in connection with the kidnapping of 20 passengers from Igweben train station in Edo State on January 7th. The Commissioner for Communication and Orientation, Chris Nehigare, disclosed this on Wednesday in Benin while briefing journalists shortly after the State Executive Council meeting. He added that 2 persons remaining in captivity of the kidnappers have been rescued by the security agencies. Gunmen had attacked passengers waiting to board a train from the Igweben station in Igweben local government area of Edo State to Warri in Delta State on Saturday, 7th January, and abducted no fewer than 32 persons. The police said the abductors, armed with AK-47 rifles, invaded the train station and shot sporadically into the air before abducting scores of intending travelers into the bush. 6 of the victims were rescued on January 6th, and 1 was rescued a day later. On January 13th, 2 more victims were rescued, while 12 were said to have been rescued hours later. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has called for a reinforcement of security formations in the entirety of Edo State, particularly the Central Senatorial District, to forestall kidnappings and eradicate other acts of criminality, particularly in Ishan land. This follows a motion moved by Honorable Sergius Ogun on the floor of the House during Wednesday's plenary. The motion is concerned with the spate of kidnappings, armed robbery attacks and insecurity generally in the country, which is causing fear and apprehension among residents. The House thereafter observed a minute's silence in honor of the deceased police officer, DSP Michael Adams, who paid the supreme sacrifice while in active service. It also mandated its committees on Army and the Police Affairs to ensure compliance and report back within 4 weeks for further legislative action.
The House is convinced that the setting up of a police mobile force base and a Nigerian Army barracks / forward operating base (FOB) within Edo Central Senatorial District will go a long way in weeding off perpetrators of crimes and criminality from Esan land and Edo State in general. The House resolves: 1. Observe a minute of silence in honor of the deceased police officer, DSP Michael Adams, who paid the supreme sacrifice while in active service.
And hoodlums dressed in military uniforms have abducted 4 tipper drivers from a farm in Ilorin, the Kwara State capital, where they went to excavate sand for supply to their customers last Saturday. The police public relations officer in the state, Ajayi Okonsomi, confirmed the abduction on Wednesday. He said the victims were yet to be rescued as of Wednesday, said the 2 suspects had been arrested and were helping the police in their investigation. The 4 abductees are members of the Oyun Garage branch of the Association of Quarry and Sand Dealers, Ilorin. Reports say the kidnappers had already contacted the families and placed a 5 million ransom on each of them. Meanwhile, some women who claim to be wives of the drivers on Wednesday in Oyun area of Kwara State Polytechnic Road, Ilorin, took to the streets to solicit for alms from commuters and passers-by to raise the ransom. And speculations over the expiration of the tenure of the Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, midway into the general elections, have been laid to rest. Minister of Police Affairs, Muhammad Dingyadi, told State House correspondents on Wednesday that the police helmsman has already had an appointment letter extending his term in office. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, who presided over the first Federal Executive Council meeting for 2023 at State House, Abuja. Kende Amodu reports.
President Muhammadu Buhari did not attend the first meeting of the Council of Ministers for the year, as he was away in Nouakchott, Mauritania, for the third forum of the African Conference for Peace. The lot therefore fell on Vice President Osinbajo to guide the Council through some crucial decisions. But first, the niggling question over the tenure of the Inspector General of Police, which is supposed to expire on the 1st of March, as the clock 60.
I don't know why you go to a record, but let me say that by the provision of Police Act 2020, the IG is now supposed to have a kind of 4-year period. And Mr. President has already given him a letter of appointment in that regard. So the issue of IG going out during this election period does not arise.
Meanwhile, the Council has given the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited the go-ahead to invest 1.9 trillion naira in the reconstruction of 44 federal roads under the tax credit policy. The roads, which are spread across the country, will also be concessioned under the pilot phase of the value-added section of the Highways Development and Management Initiative.
The roads that that will be under this first phase are the Benin-Asaba corridor, Abuja-Lokoja, Onitsha, Owerri-Aba, Shagamu to Benin, Abuja-Kefi-Akwanga-Lafia to Makurdi, Kano-Maiduguri, as the Kano-Shauri, Enugu to Port Harcourt, Lagos-Ota-Abeokuta, and Lagos-Badagry-Seme.
Also on Wednesday, the Council approved the procurement and assembling of a Magnus Sentinel aircraft and stimulator in Zaria at the sum of over 2.2 billion naira over a period of 18 months.
We're getting them to come here and assemble this aircraft and later on to continue to produce them here in Nigeria for the first time. And the arrangement is as in the memo. We're procuring it from them and they have helping us to establish here and assemble, just like what Peugeot was doing before and Volkswagen in Nigeria. But we'll go a step forward to do the actual manufacture.
The simulator will be assembled in Zaria and, according to the Aviation Minister, Hadi Sirika, is expected to kickstart the aviation industry's manufacture of aircraft in the country. From State House, Abuja, Kehinde Amodu, Trust TV News.
And to politics now, where Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi said he will unite and secure the nation if elected in February. Obi said this at the party's presidential rally in Kaduna, where he pledges to revamp agriculture, create employment and fight insecurity in the north. The report.
Hundreds of supporters converged on Ahmadu Bello Stadium to receive the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, with his running mate, Datti Baba Ahmed, and members of their campaign team. Obi, while addressing the party supporters, said he will address economic and security challenges as well as create job opportunities for the youths.
It is supposed to be the most secure place in Nigeria. But today, people can see they cannot stay with their eyes closed. That is why I am about to say that and I said we will secure and unite Nigeria. We are showing you security will come back here again. Excellency, the Kaduna State welcomes you and your beautiful wife. We want to assure you that, as you have seen us here, these are your organic followers. These are organic followers. We know the structure. You are the structure. Forward ever. We're tired of moving backward. For almost 8 years, we'll be hurtling backward. This is the time for us to begin to move forward. And I tell you something.
the presidential candidate handed over flag to the gubernatorial candidate of the party in Kaduna State, Jonathan Asaki. He had earlier held a town hall meeting with women, youth, and other stakeholders in Kaduna. Bello Musa, Trust TV News, Kaduna.
And still talking politics, presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, says he will expand the scope of Nigeria's economy by tackling unemployment if voted into power. The former vice president made the pledge during a presidential rally held on Wednesday in Abeokuta. Atiku said he will address unemployment, the living standard of workers will be improved, and all obstacles removed to effectively develop the economy. Abubakar urged PDP leaders to ensure delivery of their various polling units to win the forthcoming general elections.
PDP! 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 Now, the people of Ogun State, first of all, we want to apologize for our delay in coming to address you at this rally. But in spite of that, we can see that you are very, very patient. So we thank you for your patience. You have listened to what the PDP promises to do for Ogun State. We have promised to devolve more powers and resources to Ogun State and also the local governments of Ogun. We have promised to make sure industrialization of Ogun State, because Ogun State is endowed with so many mineral resources.
And now to health matters, where the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, NIMR, has organized a sensitization campaign for stakeholders and secondary school students on the need for diagnosis, treatment and prevention of cervical cancer that is affecting women and young girls. The sensitization campaign took place at the Medical Research Institute, Yaba, Lagos. The report.
Children's cervix, commonly known as cervical cancer, is the fourth most common cancer among women and girls globally. According to research, one life is lost every 2 minutes due to the disease. To prevent such, the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, NIMR, deemed it necessary to sensitize the public on the dangers of the disease, which, if diagnosed early, can be prevented or treated successfully. The director of the research, Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, Lagos, Professor Oliver Ezichi, speaks.
Cervical cancer can be prevented by HPV vaccination of young girls, screening of women, and treatment of those ones identified to have precancers and invasive cancers. But unfortunately, in the country, our cervical cancer control is not very well organized, and only less than 10% or even less than 5% have ever screened for cervical cancer.
Research shows that in Nigeria, cervical cancer is the second most common cancer among females, with over 36 million Nigerians at risk of developing it. Speaking to some of these stakeholders, the chairperson of the International Federation of Women Lawyers, FIDA, Lagos State Branch, Chinwe Efobi, called for cooperation among stakeholders.
I want to make sure that those rights are enforced. That's why we will help in spreading this. We will make people to be aware of the effects of cervical cancer. People should be, the women should allow their daughters from the age of 9 to 15 years to be screened.
Well, I learned today how to make an awareness, like the means that they're going to use to spread the awareness is the mother-daughter approach, where us daughters, we the students, can go home, talk to our mothers, and tell them about how deadly the cervical virus is.
It affects mostly girls, and it's the second cancer of the women, which is the second most popular cancer. And then I've learned that we can use vaccine, which is the HPV vaccine, to eradicate the cancer in the early stage.
The Nigerian Institute of Medical Research said cervical cancer is one of the most preventable and treatable forms if detected early and managed effectively.
And to judicial matters now, where a federal high court has adjourned till March 20th hearing on a $53 million judgment debt arising from the Paris Club refund against Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele. Justice Inyang Ekwo had summoned him on October 20 last year following an application for garnishee made by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, George Aggie, who is the judgment creditor. The court granted the application and ordered Emefiele to appear in court on Wednesday, January 18th. The dispute stemmed from an alleged $70 million judgment against Linus International Limited for the lawyer, that's Joe Aggie, assistance with the Paris Club refund. Now, the court had on January 23, 2020, ruled that Emefiele must appear to be examined on oath, touching on the means he had since the date of the said garnishee order to pay the balance of $53 million now due and payable under the said garnishee order, and also to show cause why he should not be committed to prison for default in payment of the said sum. Still with us on Trust TV News Update. Still ahead. We'll show you how weeds compete with road users in Osun. Details of this and more after the break. Do stay with us.
Daily Trust presents 20th Daily Trust Dialogue. Theme: Interrogating the 2023 Presidential Agenda. Panelists: Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika, former Chairman, First Bank of Nigeria. Professor Jibrin Ibrahim, Professor of Political Science and member of the board of the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD. Dr. Yetunde Anibaba, Lecturer, Analysis of Business Problems, Lagos Business School. Dr. Eugene Enahoro, Human Capacity Development Specialist and CEO, Heltoni Services Limited. Chairman of the event, John Cardinal Onaikon, Archbishop Emeritus of Abuja. Date: Thursday, 25th January 2023. Time: 10 a.m. Venue: NAF Conference Center and Suites, Gwarimpa Expressway, near Next Shopping Mall, Kado, Abuja. For sponsorship and branding participation, contact 081 00 49 1948, 081 65 32 0660, or 080 33 92 8902. The event will be broadcast live on Trust TV.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us on Trust TV News Update. Now let's take another look at our top stories. 2 monarchs and 5 others arrested over Edo train station attack, and tenure of Inspector General of Police Alkali Baba extended. Moving on to other news now. Police operatives and civilians guarding the residence of the late President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, detained for 29 days, have been released. The 8 detained police operatives and civilians were released some hours after families spoke to Trust TV demanding either their prompt charge to court or release. Abdullahi Yamadi completes the story.
One of the detained civilians guarding residence of the late president said they were arrested and detained for allegedly burgling and stealing some valuables belonging to Hajia Ture Yar'Adua. He said though it was an offense they knew nothing about, they were however detained for 29 days without trial. Narrating his ordeal, Yunusa Muhammad said though they were not interrogated and humiliated in the course of investigation, but 29 days in detention is something he will never forget. The only thing I will do is to leave everything in the hands of God, because I personally believe in destiny. Let me appreciate you and the media you represent for coming through for us through your reportage. He, however, thanked God for his intervention and commended the media for championing their cause. The entire family of Yunusa Muhammad was joyous and expressed gratitude to all those who stood by them at their difficult moments.
This is one of the days we will never forget. We are happy for the freedom of our husband. We thank God for everything. Human rights groups and other NGOs have done well.
Observers are calling on the police to restrain themselves from certain action in order to avoid being labeled as a brutal force that acts with impunity. Abdullahi Ismayamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Now, there is a growing concern among residents of Osun State over the presence of overgrown weeds on roadsides in most parts of the state. Residents express worry as it poses hazardous threats to people plying the roads amidst growing security concerns and hazy weather conditions. Hamid Oyegbadi has details.
Several safety measures are put in place to prevent road users, pedestrians, cyclists and motorists from being killed or injured while plying roads. Traffic signs and road surface markings convey useful information and instructions to drivers to guide their decisions and actions. But when weeds and trees take over the roadway median and road shoulder, they cover the traffic signs and road surface markings, posing danger to road users. In Osun State, residents lamented that weeds and trees have grown on roadsides, preventing drivers from having clear view of the road signs.
Armed robbers, bandits, and all these kidnappers could hide very, close to the main road, throw anything on the road to cause confusion for the driver, and in the process they attack them. They abduct people, lead them into the bush.
If there is drainage beside the road, the driver won't be able to see that there is drainage beside the road. So it's very difficult and it can cause waste of life. So I want to appeal to the state government, the local government and the individual to look into it and find a lasting solution to it.
It's a very, very dangerous thing, especially for drivers. Like, it obstructs their views a lot and it's very, very prone to accidents.
The sector commander of the Federal Road Safety Commission in Osun State, Paul Okpe, said the commission is carrying out advocacy to government agencies to find permanent solution to the problem.
And one of our advocacy that we embarked on earlier when we came in here was about the clearance of vegetation, which will have continued to happen. In meeting with the traditional rulers, the Oni of Ife, and many of them, even the governor, the then governor, and all stakeholders, especially those at the Ministry of Environment, we told them the need to ensure that we have our roads free of overgrown vegetation.
Traffic accidents are among the most dangerous global threats to people's health and life. Therefore, governments at all levels, relevant agencies and communities should collaborate to ensure safety of vehicle operators and passengers and pedestrians by making the roads safe. Hamid Oyegbade, Trust TV News, Osogbo.
Now to legislative matters, where a bill to establish the National Research Institute for Chemical Technology on Wednesday scaled second reading on the floor of the Senate. The bill, according to the sponsor, Umar Suleiman, said establishing of the institute will provide globally competitive and environmentally friendly research, development and innovation in the processing and conversion of indigenous raw materials into valuable chemicals and petrochemical products. After contributions from other lawmakers, the bill was then referred to the Committee on Science and Technology to report back within 4 weeks.
The objectives of the bill of the Institute, when established, shall be, among other things, to undertake research and development work on processes for the conversion of agricultural, mineral, and other raw materials into useful chemicals, processing of commercial grade chemicals to laboratory grades, the derivation of secondary chemicals from petrochemicals, coal, solid minerals, and other minerals.
And now for a look at the foreign scene, where peacekeepers in the Democratic Republic of Congo have discovered mass graves containing the bodies of 49 civilians following a series of attacks blamed on a local armed group. Deputy spokesperson for the United Nations, Farhan Haq, in New York on Wednesday, said the graves have been uncovered in 2 villages in northeastern Ituri province, about 30 kilometers east of the town of Bunia. A total of 42 victims, including 6 children, were discovered in a mass grave in the village of Nyamamba, while the bodies of 7 other men were found in another village, Mbogi. Haq said the UN is calling for an investigation that will establish whether the mass graves and the attacks were linked. He added that the UN regional peacekeeping operation known as MONUSCO is supporting the Congolese judicial system to investigate the attacks and called for the perpetrators to be brought to justice. And in sports, Inter Milan beat rivals AC Milan by 3-0 to win the Italian Super Cup in Saudi Arabia. Federico Di Marco put the former Serie A champions ahead after 10 minutes when he tapped in Nicolo Barella's cross. Lautaro Martinez wrapped up the win in the 77th minute with a curled finish. AC Milan were, however, denied a consolation goal in stoppage time when Ante Rebic's effort hit the top of the crossbar. Now, this is the first time Inter have beaten AC Milan in an Italian Cup final, having lost the Coppa Italia in 1977 and the Italian Super Cup in 2011. And that wraps up Trust TV News Update for this hour. For more news, you can subscribe to watch us live on YouTube and follow us across all our social media platforms. I am Ibrahim Yusuf. Thanks for watching.